pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we'll open the meeting up to public comment. Alright, no public comment tonight. Special presentation.
All right.
Lisa Gillette is going to discuss our budget,
Clear as mud.
round 3.
Yeah.
So again, before she starts, I'd like to, Mrs. Gillette in the office has been working very diligently and certainly very closely with Mr. Dudley Lemick, myself, and Mr. Boyd, putting the budget together. Our goal is to keep the board and the public up to date. Each meeting, we have some new information, certainly, a little bit of discussion about the tax cap, but I'm going to pass it over to Mrs. Gillette.
Okay. All right, our mission statement, where we are, March 1st, I submitted the property tax cap. Yay! I live in a dark world, okay? We gotta be happy with it. We're happy with you.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
The confetti was supposed to drop.
Yes, all right. So we're gonna talk about, if you remember at the last meeting, the reason I was very concerned in February is because the state provided districts with a wrinkle saying that we had to amend the prior year tax cap for BOCES. And as of February 11th or whatever, we had no information. And if you are a numbers nerd or you know a numbers nerd, when we have a lack of information or source documents, resources, we kind of go off the edge a little bit. So that Friday, we received BOCES information. I was able to submit the property tax cap on time and everything is wonderful. What I'm going to attempt to do tonight is explain the impact that BOCES made on the tax cap calculation. Okay. I'm gonna try. So in front of you, if you look at your little handout, instead of looking at the screen, and you come to this slide, this was provided at the last meeting. And this is Highland's tax cap history. How do I read this? You start from the right side, which is the oldest, 2015, and you go forward to 2020. I have little arrows here so you can see in 2015, you can follow the numbers. The capital exclusion from one year is carried forward to the next. You compute a new capital exclusion, it gets carried forward. So you can see the progression, okay? Look at the 2020 column, please. That is our tax cap calculation for the current year, for 1920. The red number that is circled, the first one, 1,311,184, that was the number that was originally submitted without any BOCES modifications, okay? So last year, we levied 28,313,197, and it was about 1.1% increase in the tax cap. We know that when we issued our tax bills, it was less than 1%, and some folks even had a decrease, okay? So this is the original 1920 tax cap calculation, all right? The other reason I wanted to show you this slide is you see this big blue arrow on the bottom? If you look far right, in 2015, it was 3.5%, 1.8%, 0.6%, 2.9, 4.5, 1.1. There are fluctuations. The fluctuations relate directly to these numbers in the capital exclusion. They go up and down. The goal is to keep the capital exclusions flat, so you don't have the bottom line fluctuations. Okay, everybody with me? Questions, comments, concerns? All right, moving forward. And we're going to read this slide exactly the opposite. We're going to start at the far left column. See that red circle, 1,399,635? That's after the BOCES exclusion was computed. So what I had to do is I had to go back in, recompute 1920 with the BOCES number, and then it carried forward into the 2021, the calculation I needed to submit. The difference is approximately $88,000. So what the state did in order to neutralize any effect that BOCES might have on the tax levy, tax cap, is you had to go back, recompute 1920, submit that, and then it carried forward into 2021. There was money left on the table in 1920 after the district recomputed with BOCES. Can we access that money? No, we can't. It's gone. So during the 2021, let's look at this column. We had a tax levy of $28,313,197. That's how much we levied. Should be the same number on the prior page. We have a growth factor in Highland, 1.0163. That's the highest one in the county, and that's based upon assessments. Pilots, 17,319. There's a capital levy of the prior year, 1,399,000. The tax growth factor, that's the one that's assessed by the state. That's the 2%. Last year it was 2%. This year it's 1.0181%. The pilots for the coming year, 24,449. The capital exclusion is 1,394,376 for 2021. That allows the district to have a tax cap of 29,258,115. Please excuse that 29,252,153. I apologize. It is actually 29,258,115, or 3.34% tax levy increase. Okay? Why is that 3.34%? First reason is that tax rate growth factor of 1.0163. The second one is the allowable growth factor. If you look at all of our other numbers, it's just slight variations, maybe 10,000. The biggest force between that is causing that 3.34% are the growth factors. Okay? Now, if you remember on the previous slide, okay, exactly, thank you, we have growth. So growth means we can have a bigger number. Growth equals bigger numbers. If you look at where our tax levy limits were, they were all over the place. If you look and see what I am projecting, it looks like we're going to be around 2% in the upcoming years. Why is that? Because our capital exclusion, that piece, looks like it's going to be constant. All right? That's the goal, is to not have, the only word that's coming to my mind is vivid, significant
fluctuations. What is outside of our control? The growth factors are outside of our control. So what I want to ask the board tonight is, how comfortable do you feel with the 3.34%? And let's take it through. What happens? So this is a summary of our revenue sources for 2021. And again, the state aid is using what the executive proposed. We don't have any further information.
But this could change, correct?
It could,
Okay.
and it will change. When that happens,
To the positive.
we don't know, okay?
Right.
Slight increase in the federal aid, slight increase in the pilots. And there on the bottom is the calculated tax levy, the 994,918, 3.34%. There's something that I want the board to consider and keep in mind. This $1.5 million fund balance applied to the budget. So basically, I have to over budget every year $1.5 million to keep that as a constant. Honestly, it's unsustainable, okay? In a district this small, with our budget so tight and our revenue sources so tight, that $1.5 million is significant.
Lisa, we've been saying this for years, even before you.
Okay,
Yeah.
I don't know the history, I just have a
No,
year.
it's
So
just, yes,
I just, business-wise, you know, the
yeah,
number nerd, I just want the board to think about that.
yeah.
If there's a way to decrease that amount without reducing people or program, we'd love to hear about it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, I think moving forward, when we have, in certain positions, you know, we'll be looking at class sizes. We don't want to eliminate programming, we don't want to eliminate, it can be done through attrition. But
Or
probably
step
a
programs
district
that
of this
aren't well
size,
funded,
you probably want,
or.
you might not, I'm not a number person, as, I don't want to use the word.
You go ahead.
But probably you want to be under $1 million, maybe 8,750, maybe half of that, 800,000 for, because you're probably always going to have to apply some funds.
Which we were for a long time, and we talked about trying to even get that down, and now we've gotten it up.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
we were at $1 million.
we were at 9 when I first got on.
See, I don't, yeah.
So I just want you to walk in my shoes for a little bit. Budget status report, general fund. When you look at your unencumbered balance, the report, I believe, that's January, but I just ran February's. It's about $2.1 million unencumbered. I know that number's not true. I'm hoping and praying that that number is going to be above $1.5 million. It's the far right column on your budget status general fund report.
Well, the
Okay.
unencumbered, do I understand this correctly? The unencumbered in the column, that includes the 1.5 million.
It should,
Well, it does, doesn't it?
it should include. The 1 point, okay, so let's
Yes
talk
and no.
about.
Yes.
It's a yes and no.
Okay, yes and no. Thank you. Fund balance is comprised of two sources. One is, you don't spend all the money you budget, okay, so that's where that column. The other side of that is you receive more money than you budget. Your revenues are greater than what you budget, okay? So through this process, I will be looking at that number and seeing if we can maintain it. I can tell you right now, it's tight. As of June 30th, 2020, that number is tight. Okay? How does the board feel about the 3.34% tax levy?
Where are other districts coming in, do you know?
I have a meeting on Friday with my fellow, business officials, and I'll poll.
Boo.
But their factors may be different. Like I told, we have a significant tax-based growth factor, 1.0163. Others districts are around 1, if not below 1.
So my understanding is that's our ability, that's our 2%, even though
Yep.
it translates as a 3 point
That's
something
correct.
percent.
That is your 50%
That's
plus
your
1.
cap. Yeah,
That's
that's
the
not
cap,
piercing.
that's not piercing the cap.
That's the cap.
That's your cap, that's your
Correct.
50% plus 1. That's what it is. So, do I have expenditure information to present? No, I do not. I will have that on March 17th. I have been in another ESSA world.
So we don't know when final state aid will come. Hopefully, they're on target with an April 1st budget, right? And then we should know
I
shortly
hope so,
after.
yes.
Hopefully, yep.
Yes. So I just wanted to educate the board what the tax levy limit is, the maximum, 3.34. I wanted you to understand that I'm still budgeting the state aid for the executive. And I'm a little concerned about that 1.5, but it's still a little too early to tell right now. I just wanted you to understand this.
Would a strategy be to reduce that 1.5 million? To say, let's look within our pool and see if we could find 100,000 worth of savings over the next 5 years, so each year, 100, peel it off?
I think that, working with the folks in the audit committee and with our auditors, doing a planned reduction over the next 5 years, I think it would be sustainable. What you can't do is go from 1.5 to 1.
Right.
All right, you don't have $500,000 in a pocket somewhere that I haven't found. Okay?
Does Mike's question sound reasonable?
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. I just needed to find the gauge where everybody was comfortable.
I'm not comfortable at 3.3 as far as that percentage we talked about, though that's at the cap,
That's on the
but
cap.
we know the information might bobble around.
Right.
I also recall is Ray Pruser our
Mhm.
external auditor?
External, correct.
Our external auditor in the past would caution us going below the cap.
Right.
They usually like to come, because those numbers are built. And from the forecast I see, it's a 1-year anomaly to get to a more fixed system. That's right.
Correct.
That's why I wanted to show you your previous percentages and the projections that I made.
But that 1.16 from this past year to
Yes,
that
that would-
3% is gonna be real money for folks.
What would throw you off of those projections? What would be the unknown that would really skew those percentages?
The unknown, all right, so what I did, let's take the tax-based growth factor right now, as I said, it was 1.0163.
And so you eventually had it reducing. that,
I
so-
went
yeah,
down.
Yeah,
I went down steadily.
She knows that
Okay, so
moratorium
that-
can impact that.
The projected pilot information, that's what I
Maybe.
project as actual. Our capital levy, I feel extremely confident that it will be within those numbers. I don't know what the 2% number is going to be, but I reduced it to 1.15, okay? Based upon what happens with the economy in the next couple
This
months.
is very conservative.
Very conservative. So that's what I am, I'm very conservative.
So the best right now, the best figure right now is 3.34?
Yes.
That's where we're at.
That's where we are at.
It's, Ed brought up something very concerning, a little while ago that the rebate for staying under the cap is going away.
Well, it expires this year, and the legislature hasn't renewed it. Now, that could be just falling to a political realm, they may be waiting to do it under the guise, because it was a Republican initiative initially, so they may just be letting it grandfather out and then bringing it back as a
Right.
Democratic
Right,
initiative.
that's
We
just
don't know how
concerning,
politics
that's
are.
one less bit of few $100s that the homeowner is going
Yeah,
to
that's
get.
they're gonna miss that, but we're not gonna feel the impact of that till
And-
next spring.
And unfortunately, that's beyond our control.
Yeah, yeah,
But
that's
it's
right.
still,
But I agree.
it ties into this.
The other piece that is probably not as well known is STAR. And the proposals for the 2021 STAR Basic and
It's still
Enhanced.
effective.
Basically, the state can't afford to continue STAR as an exemption to pay the districts. What they are proposing is folks move to a credit, which means it comes off of your taxes and you have to go and register online for the credit. If you bought a house right now, you would no longer have a STAR exemption.
Right, it
You would
comes with a
have to
check.
go through
You gotta
and
go
apply.
and apply.
Yeah,
Right.
so that's what the state is moving forward. They've already frozen, the STAR's been frozen for at least 2 years. It does not grow. So that's the one that is hidden, that folks, everyday homeowners don't realize their STAR is going away.
That's not what I heard.
No.
No, it's still in
Yeah.
effect, but
It's not gonna be automatic, you have to apply for it.
Right,
Right.
but the dollar value of that STAR
Doesn't-
exemption.
It's reduced.
the cost of living.
Understood.
Ugh.
So I just want to give you some food for thought. 3.34, I'll be back on March 17th. I will have expenditure numbers then. I will be able to tell you the delta between our expenditures and our revenues. Right now, I'm looking at 45.5 million as a revenue. So I will tell you what the gap is, okay?
Okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Lisa, for going through that and explaining it. And again, it always,
culturally insensitive.
things always change between now and when we adopt.
Well, we can talk about it under other.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, I'm a little
I'm
upset
right
about
there
the
with
cultural insensitivity going on, I didn't realize we were
There's a
getting
corned
that.
beef with my name on it. on that.
I really pushed this one.
Okay,
Jason.
we'll move forward with acceptance of reports. Be resolved, the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, acknowledges, reviewing, and accepting the following reports that was presented at this meeting. Board of Education meeting minutes, February 11th, 2020. Treasurer's report, January 2020. Audit claims report, February 2020. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Neil, second by Heather. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Under curriculum and instruction, approval of committee on special education. Be it resolved, the Board of Education hereby accepts the recommendation of the committee on special education according to the minutes of the CSE meetings of month of January 13th and 30th, along with the month of February 4th, 5th, 19th, and 25th. CSC, the amendment agreement, no meetings, month of February 20th. CSE meeting, no meeting, transfer in month of, not to report. We still haven't figured that out. This committee will authorize the arrangements for such student special education programs and services. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Ed, second by Tom. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Approval of Committee on Preschool Special Education. Be resolved, the Board of Education hereby accepts the recommendation of the Committee on Preschool Special Education according to the minutes of the CPSE meetings of month of January 10th, 22nd, 27th, and along with the month of February 10th and 19th. CPSE meeting, no meeting, none to report currently. CPS B, no meeting, transfer in, none to report currently. This committee authorizes the arrangements for such student special education programs and services. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Ed, second by Camille. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Can we take personnel as a block, A through D, as D is part of your addendum?
Yeah,
If you have any objections, we can pull one out for a standalone vote if you need to. All right? So can I have a motion to accept personnel as a block? Motion by Mike, second by Heather. Any discussion?
Quick question on the resignation here for the accepted promotion. I'm assuming we already approved.
Yes,
Them
we
in that
approved that at the last
Okay.
meeting, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All those in favor? Opposed? So carried.
Yes, Mr. President, Board, we do have one of our appointees here. Cassie, maybe if you could just stand up and introduce yourself to the board and tell what position it is.
Yeah, hello everyone, I'm Cassie Woodruff. I actually graduated from Highland in 2013, and I'm very excited to be taking over for Mrs. Jamal for the rest of the school year, so thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Good luck. Welcome back to Highland.
Okay. Student rep, Bella.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, so in the past few weeks, at the elementary school, there was a PTA fundraiser at Five Guys. The American Heart Association fundraiser I had mentioned last time, concluded and raised over $5,500, which is great for the school. The middle school French classes celebrated Mardi Gras last week, and there's a 7th grade field trip to the American Museum of Natural History. At the high school, I think it was 2 weeks ago, or it was actually this past weekend, on the 29th, about a dozen of Model UN students went to a conference at Hudson High School, which was, of course, a great opportunity. It was a lot of the students that didn't get the opportunity to go to Boston. The Queen of Hearts charity ball held by Interact Club was a success, raised over $2,000 for multiple different charities. And spring sports are starting Monday. And finally, we have the chorus scholarship concert tomorrow night at the high school and the band scholarship concert next week. Alternate Wednesdays.
Thank you, Belle. Yeah, great job.
Question for Bella?
Joe was just rehearsing in the theater for the musical, came straight here.
I've
I don't
officially
think she's
been here
been
for
home to
12
eat yet.
hours.
She's everywhere, every time I turn around, I see Bella.
All right. Thank you, Bella.
You're welcome.
Okay, under business and operations, budget transfer, be it resolved, the Board of Education upon the recommendation of the superintendent approves the following budget transfer for the 2019, 2021, or is it supposed to be 2020 school year as presented to the board at this meeting. Budget transfer number 6962 for $32,000. Have a motion, please. Motion by Heather, second by Camille. Discussion. All those in favor?
I did have, I'm sorry, I did have a question on, the student and the teacher days. Quite a big difference between those. Are those all the conference days that we had? Because student days
Oh,
are.
you're looking at the school calendar.
Yes. Was that not what we were talking about?
No,
No.
no, it's
Oh,
budget
finance
transfer.
for-
Budget
Oh,
transfer. We can get there yet.
Exactly, superintendent's from. We'll do that.
Oh, all right.
Any questions on the budget transfer? And we already took a call on that 7-7 deal.
Yes.
Okay, capital project equipment proposal, operations and maintenance equipment referendum. Be resolved, the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, approves the following proposition to be placed on the ballot at the annual meeting of the qualified voters of the Highland Central School District to be conducted on May 19, 2020. Shall the Board of Education of the Highland Central School District be authorized to purchase maintenance and grounds equipment in the nature of utility grounds vehicles and ancillary equipment, large capacity snow removal equipment, trucks with plow, trailer, plow, and commercial grade maintenance equipment, which total estimated maximum cost $267,200, and that sum of $267,200 or so much thereof as may be necessary be raised by the levy of a tax upon the taxable property of said school district and collected in annual installments provided by section 416 of the education law, and in anticipation of such tax, obligations of the district be issued. Be it further resolved that the district clerk is hereby authorized and directed to include notice of such proposition in the notice of the Highland Central School District annual meeting.
At this point, I'm going to do a roll call,
Yes.
so I'll state your name and just say A or nay.
Do we get a chance to talk about it, or?
Okay,
Yeah.
But how come we're just not buying the stuff? Why do we need this resolution?
Because we're going to issue a bond and we just can't buy it, we need voter approval when you, look to purchase any capital equipment. So we,
And the definition of that is what, over 100,000?
Usually much lower.
so,
Actually, I think that was just in the board policies, was it, I think it's 15? It's much lower.
I think it is 5,000.
Yeah.
So, in order to purchase equipment, capital equipment, you can buy it with cash, but you have to budget it. There's no appropriation in the current 1920 budget. So, if we looked at the 2021 budget, which is what we're looking at, you would be raising that by $267,000 with no revenue source. Okay, it's not aidable. By buying it in installments, obviously, you're gonna pay for it over 5 years. The budget impact would be about $85,000, $90,000. Okay? So you would include the principal and interest in the 2021 budget. It just is a little, and that's
I got you.
how
So you want to bond it for a
maintain-
longer payback period rather than 5 years?
Yeah, 5 years.
Rather
It's
than
just
one-
like
Isn't that the
buying-
standard payback on a vehicle?
It's just like buying a bus.
But rather than
Exact
one
same
putting it in
thing.
the regular budget.
Okay.
Yeah, exact same thing.
I mean, the other option would be if you had, let's use hypothetical, you want to have a 5-year plan and you want to buy 2 pieces of equipment each year, you would have to budget.
Yes. There's another option, which doesn't, it's not as attractive as it was previously. The voters could approve the establishment of a capital reserve specifically to purchase capital equipment, okay?
Don't we have one of those?
No,
We
no.
have capital reserves.
We have one capital reserve specifically for construction. So that's the other option. Why isn't that, a good option anymore? Because you are not allowed the exclusion on the capital levy with the tax cap.
And there's no aid on this.
And no aid.
No aid if you buy through the budget.
No aid, period.
Period. Is
Buses,
this a
yes.
larger piece of equipment than exists in our fleet currently?
This is multiple pieces,
Multiple
multiple
things
pieces
to
of
kind of-
equipment. I think the largest would be the plow truck, the truck.
Yeah.
Some of it is upgrades to, mowing equipment, mower.
Right, just to kind of keep it reserved.
Just taking the older
To
one
get us
out
up
of the
to
fleet,
snuff on where we
going
should
back
be.
into the fleet.
Yeah. Theoretically, we probably should have been, replacing things a little bit more often.
We
Thank you.
did this 3 years ago,
Okay.
4 years ago, 4
Yeah.
or 5 years ago.
4 or 5 years.
Gotcha, there's a lot of
I think we
meetings.
probably just managed.
Thank you.
It was well received back then also, by the community. Just to back up, we need a motion, please, for this proposition. Motion by Heather, second by Tom. Now you could do roll call. Is there any other questions? Okay, Lisa, you can now
Okay.
do a roll
Let me
call.
just state your name. Heather Welch,
Yes.
Camille Adoma,
Yes.
Ed Mizell,
Aye, yes.
Mike Bakaxias,
Yes.
Sue Gilmore,
Yes.
Tom Miller,
Aye.
Alan Barum.
Yes,
Okay, thank you, that's,
Thank you.
thank you.
motion carried 7-0.
Okay. Assistant superintendent.
Okay, I have just a couple of things to talk about this evening. The first is an update on something that I brought to you, I think at the last meeting, that New York State is doing a review of graduation requirements. And yes, I had mentioned that I would be attending a regional meeting that's being held at Ulster BOCES tomorrow from 5 to 7. The public is welcome, if there's anyone out there or at the table that would like to go, I don't know. Are any board members planning to?
Sue Gilmore, you were going to, but they
Yeah, when
changed
they
the date.
changed the date, I
Right.
can't.
Yeah.
So I will be there representing Highland.
I think it's really important if we can,
Yes, so what I wanted to share with you, I had mentioned at the last meeting that my plan was to meet with each of these, at each faculty meeting in each building, to have them brainstorm the 5 questions that will be discussed at the meeting tomorrow. I was not able to go to the elementary school, again, because when they changed the date, the elementary school faculty meeting is actually after the changed date. It might be a little bit higher interest in middle and high school, but I wanted to share with you the results of the conversations that we had. And the way I did it is, all the teachers had the questions ahead of time. So then when we got into the faculty meetings, they sat in random tables. So I made sure that people were sitting with people they don't necessarily normally spend a lot of time with, either by department or grade level. And they really talked through the questions, and then they chose their kind of top 2 in their list that they brainstormed and added them to paper that we had. So what you are getting here is a compilation of all the responses that were received from all the different groups. So I think each faculty meeting, there were 6 or 7 tables, depending on the number of people that were there, sharing their kind of top 2. So I wanted you to see kind of where the staff is on these questions. These questions are very open-ended. Of course, the 1 hour that we had for a faculty meeting was by no means enough time to really delve deeply into these questions, but I was very pleased with the enthusiasm that teachers interacted with one another and discussed these topics. I mean, there was very rich conversation happening. Many people came with written responses to the questions so that they were prepared to have the conversation when we got there. And it generated some very interesting conversations, even about, what's the importance of content, or, how do we assess, if we're talking about portfolios, how do we really assess that on a statewide level? Or, so some really good conversation. A couple of things that I'd like to point out. In question 1, which is what do we want students to know and be able to do before they graduate? If you look at the responses here, almost none of them pertain to specific content. They're really looking at things like how you create or use knowledge. So, critical thinking, problem solving, growth mindset, all of those are emphasized much more than, a student needs to be able to complete Algebra 1 or whatever it might be. Another emphasis is really on those interpersonal or soft skills, things like collaboration, communication, perseverance, self-regulation. Those were by far more popular than kind of the nitty-gritty of specific content. So that was, I found that very interesting as I looked at the results and as we had the conversations as a faculty. How do we want students to demonstrate such knowledge and skills? Again, there was some mention of tests, but the biggest takeaway I had from listening to people share out and discuss was many pathways. Yes, tests can be a part of this, but we want other ways for students to be able to demonstrate their skills or their, ability to be successful. So that was the biggest takeaway, I would think, there, and things like internships, capstone experiences, a lot of experiential observations there. Number 3, how do you measure learning and achievement to ensure they are indicators of high school completion? I think this one was difficult for teachers to really grapple with. Okay, we want to do it this way, but how do we make sure that this is equitable? How do we make sure that it's something we really can measure? And I think the answer that best represents the conversation we had is towards the middle of the bullets. And it says we need to offer multiple pathways to demonstrate learning and complete high school. These can include tests, service projects, portfolios with rigorous and flexible rubrics. So again, really using a variety of measures rather than relying on one specific test. And I think, Sue, it was you that had asked at the last meeting if this meant that Regents exams were going to go away. And I really thought about my response later I don't think that Regents are going away. I don't know that I hope that they're going to go away, but I really hope that we can be looking at many different things. And I do think that might turn itself more likely. How can we really help different subgroups, such as students with disabilities or English language learners? It's a lot of the same responses. Really looking at those CDOS credentials, which again is just another pathway for being able to show your success. And then even when we got to the question number 5 of what course requirements or examinations will ensure that students are prepared for college and careers or civic engagement, they still were not very specific. And maybe that's just the nature of how I placed people together. You didn't have all the math teachers in one place or all the social studies teachers in one place, so maybe one voice didn't get to dominate that conversation. But again, it's a lot about public speaking, problem solving, cultural competency, fewer traditional exams. So I think it's interesting. Of course, this is just one stakeholder group in our whole school community. This is teachers talking. It doesn't necessarily represent what parents or even students would portray, but I thought it was interesting that teachers tended to go in a similar direction in the conversation, so I just wanted you to see those results. And like I said, I will be there and I'll report out at the next meeting about what the general conversation looked like, in a bigger audience, because it is regional. I think it's 3 counties that will be. It's not just Ulster County, it's Regent Finn, I believe. So whatever her area is, if anyone in that group was invited. So I'm curious, Stephen, how many people are there. You never know.
I know this is like for graduation requirements, but I think that one of the unrealistic things that we hold students to, and it's just not reflective of the changes now, it's the phys ed requirement. The fact that they have to take phys ed, where if you play, it would make sense to me that if you play 2 or more scholastic sports, you should trade off that phys ed requirement and not have to attend. I only say that because I know that in some cases, kids forego lunch and then for opportunities and stuff like that, and there's all these state requirements, like that one just, there seems to be
a lot more.
I understand about the child obesity and the meal program and all the things, but when these kids are in a sport, they're actually engaged in that physical
How many of
activity.
them take karate and after school program?
Any of them.
Right.
So if they're,
No, I think that's a good point. It's definitely one that I can bring up tomorrow too. I mean, I think it does seem like all of that's on the table right now. And definitely flexibility.
my
Even I
concern
think
is
in
when they
like-
have these discussions, it's always more, like nothing that ever
Yeah.
goes away,
Right,
right?
right.
So, I mean, it's hopeful, so anyway, just raising awareness, I think there's some areas that would allow students to pursue other things and create opportunities for kids.
I think that's-
And then your phys ed teachers have to see every kid in the building for all that time?
Well, and even, our students who are very interested in band or chorus, they always end up having to make choices about whether they want to continue or not, and the PE requirement would be part of that. Is
Unfair,
there a balance there, or are
Right.
students
Right.
who want to pursue art and also want to do an advanced placement, you know, schedule, or, you know, whatever it might be, I
I mean,
think
you
you're
go to
absolutely
All
right.
Sport, they could print out a
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
report
That's a
of how
good-
many times
yeah.
you were there, I mean,
And health
Yeah.
and fitness is
in this
important,
age of
but they-
data,
they
there's a
see
lot
the
of
company.
data that
There
they
is.
provide. Anyway,
Yeah, no,
Thank you.
That's
No.
really building
that's an
on
excellent
this.
point,
This
and
is
one.
good.
I mean, if we had a student who was taking college English courses while attending high school, we'd allow them to waive, we'd have a means of waiving the English requirements, right? They wouldn't have to, would they have to take
Not necessarily, so, you're thinking about math, we certainly have had students that took math as summer credits at a college or something, and then didn't need to take the
Right,
math,
so-
yeah, same
so
thing.
why is phys ed override, we say, when every other subject falls into that ability, why is phys ed?
Well, the interesting
Heavy.
thing, you know,
It's
talking
a
a little
heavy
bit of
requirement.
history, when I first started in Highland and we were on block scheduling, especially when we were on the semester block schedule, there was the ability to waive PE credit because we were only doing what they took 4 or 5 classes each semester
Right.
rather than across the whole year. They did have the ability to waive that if, and there were all kinds of, and, you know, again, I was a pretty new teacher and really focused on social studies, but I do kind of
there were
remember.
some alternatives.
I was gonna
Yeah,
bring that
I
up.
think that was
That
part
That
of
was
the,
about maybe 10 years ago.
I just think-
yeah, it was a long
Yeah,
time.
so
It was
all
very
the
early,
gyms,
it
all the
ended, I think,
technology.
fairly
You
quick.
need to
These
submit
telephones
evidence.
and all.
Yes, you had to submit that you were going and you had to keep a
That's
log.
an answer.
I just want to think you can open up, yeah.
Try
Yeah.
to loosen it up for some of these
But
students.
I think things are moving in that direction. If you look at the state standardized testing where now they're bringing in more people that were in the trenches coming through to
Right, they're
Develop these-
decreasing the hour, yeah, maybe
developing
we'll
these
get
tests
Yeah,
and not,
it's-
you know, using Pearson from.
And like I said, I do, the way
good
that the
data.
state is talking about this sounds like they're open to it, and the way that regions are asking about it, I do think they're looking for alternatives. I mean, they are going to be doing a nationwide, research to see what other states are doing, so there's room here. It'll be interesting to see where it all
Well, it's
actually
exciting.
plays
That
out.
was a good point.
It is.
Physical fitness now has gone beyond just in school. I mean, everybody's doing it. Everybody's going to a
And
gym
there's
or
so many
whatever.
electronic ways to demonstrate at that time and it's me and all these things, that's just.
But isn't there there's more component to phys ed class now other than just playing basketball or
Well, there's health
playing,
and.
there are some
those are separate
research
courses,
things
isn't
and
it?
papers they do, correct?
Absolutely, but that's not captured in the time is time.
Yeah, and I definitely think, you know, the exciting thing about the new PE, which is kind of what they call it, is they really are focusing much more on lifelong fitness, and that's where our new weight and fitness room plays, you know, they're in there all the time, and it's to help students, when they leave school, have an understanding of what their body can, should do. And certainly they introduce nutrition as part of, yeah, there's a lot of different elements, it's not just, okay, here's a bunch of basketballs, go.
Fella, what do you think?
Yeah.
Am I way out of left field or something?
It's
No,
about
no,
45
I
minutes.
definitely agree with you. I wanted to weigh in and say that, in like phys ed classes, every single unit, so for example, like right now we're in the volleyball unit. So there's 3 days of like playing volleyball in the gym, and there's 3 days of going to the health and fitness center, you know, like the weight room. And we're divided into like 2 groups in each gym class, and then we alternate days, so like half the group stays and plays volleyball, and half the group goes to do weight room stuff with like sheets where we fill out what we're doing, how we can help, like better our nutrition, better workout, and like you said, moving like health and fitness past high school and learning how to like, you know, take care of yourself, go to the gym, stuff like that after high school. Which I think is great. We do that in pretty much every unit.
Yeah, there's a lot even, I've seen
Heart
some of the sheets,
monitoring.
yeah.
Yeah.
And really talking about the different muscles that you're activating, the difference between aerobic and anaerobic. I mean, it's definitely a little more robust program than,
Now, does that change every year? I mean, you go through that 4 years?
It wasn't that way when my freshman year. It's definitely like the weight room has gained like a lot of momentum.
Well, it's been
Yeah.
updated, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my question is, as far as the curriculum goes, is the freshman, you have the same exact program as a freshman, as a sophomore, as a junior, as a senior? So is there redundancy going on?
I would say there there hasn't been redundancy really because they've been tweaking this system for a while, you know, like every year they're kinda,
Yeah.
The facility has gone through
Yeah,
various
the facility,
stages of.
the
Right,
staff
definitely.
has gone through, you know, so there's
But when that
been,
becomes,
Oh, yeah, when
in
I feel
theory.
like, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I feel like when, the phys ed teachers get into like a rhythm with all of this new equipment and stuff like that, it'll be the same throughout.
but it is a conversation that we have with them frequently from them, of okay, wait, when we finally do get everything in order, is there a way we're going to differentiate? Should we look at scheduling to see if we do, you know, freshmen, sophomores, junior, senior kind of thing, or something
but that's
like that?
I could see.
The biggest part is just the
requiring
scheduling.
1 year of,
Yeah.
I don't, wonderful conversation to have, I think, I hope you do.
Yeah, I have to say that I've been very proud of our PE department, especially at the high school, for the work that they've been doing with that, to really emphasize, again, life skills,
Yeah.
really, even more so. But that, yeah, there's still that kind of fun element of learning the sport and the I guess the competitive part of it too. And that's gone through a lot of different, there was a while that kids could choose if they wanted the competitive or the fitness, and
Oh, yeah, that was.
I think that there's a good
I think
balance
that's
now.
discussion.
All of these are stated.
Cassidy, you haven't seen our new fitness.
No,
Congratulations,
I
you're
know,
seeing
it's so really nice.
You wouldn't recognize it.
You wouldn't.
Go see it.
You'd want to spend time.
Right.
So that's tomorrow. I definitely will report back and let you know where the conversation goes. I'm really curious to see what the attendance is like and what stakeholders are there. You know, I hope that there's some parents, I hope there's some students that are there to contribute as well. So the second thing I'd like to talk a little bit about is kind of on the same theme, but dealing with our 3 through 8 students. I did send all of you an email almost 2 weeks ago now that we are target schools at the elementary and middle school, as well as then a target district, because we have target schools within our district for Black and African American students. This is part of the ESSA legislation. I spent, actually, Mr. Boyd, Mr. Freer, and myself were in Albany Wednesday and Thursday last week to see what that means, what that entails, what we need to do as a response to that. A few of the things that I learned while I was there, we will be on this list for 2 years. It takes 2 years to get off. You need to show that you can maintain growth. So it's not something where you just show growth in 1 year and then you're off, and then, so you need to be able to maintain the growth. And actually, it's really 3 years. We're initially on the list this year, and then I believe, my understanding is the next 2 full school years. But the way that the tests back up, it starts to get confusing. But that is my understanding. This does count as year 1, I believe, this year. The objective is to make sure that our overall score is a level 2 for this particular subgroup. I'm still really pulling apart numbers to try to understand exactly where we didn't hit the growth that we need to, but we're working on that. I guess
You said it was a 3-year average, is what they're using?
well, we're on it this year, and then I think we still have to then maintain
It's,
it for 2 more
right.
years. But now that I'm kind of thinking it through, it could be that the test scores from this year could be considered year 1, and then the test scores for next year could be considered as year 2. It always throws me off a little bit, because we're actually using the test scores from last May as the sort of baseline, so.
So this is the elementary, correct?
Elementary and middle.
Oh, both?
Both, yes. So the silver lining in this, I suppose, is that with that designation, we will receive $25,000 for each school plus the district, so $75,000 this school year through August 31st that we can use to write and make our plan. And I'll tell you more about what that involves in a few minutes. And then the state seemed fairly confident that we would then receive $50,000 starting September 1st through August 31st of 2021, again, for each building and district to implement the plan, to pay for whatever it is we come up with. So the 2 days were a little long, probably could have been 1 day, but through that, they did go through what needs to be in this plan. One of the big things that we'll be getting on first is that we need to do a climate survey. That will be district-wide, and that will involve all stakeholders, parents, students, and staff. What I'm in the process of doing right now is reaching out to neighboring districts to see which surveys they're using. There are several of them out there. My plan is that we would implement this either late April, early May, so that we could have the results by mid-May, so that when we're making the plans, we can use those results. Also a part of this is to have focus group meetings that would be conducted by central office staff. So again, those focus groups need to be with students, parents, and staff. My initial plan right now, and I'll be talking with principals more tomorrow about all of this, but my initial plan is that I will be meeting with each of the grade levels in each of the buildings to do the focus groups as a grade level with staff. I'm still working through what we want to do with students and how we want to get parent groups together. Of course, we don't want to target a specific subgroup for the focus groups. We want to make sure we're representing the whole community. So you'll be hearing more about that in the next month
I
probably.
understand the sensitivity, but isn't that gonna spread these targeted dollars and
It's okay from what
dilute them?
from what we heard and questions that were asked up there. I mean, especially, I believe, and the way they were talking at State Ed echoes this, that especially when you have a subgroup that is a particular ethnic or racial group, it really needs to be a big conversation about culture and climate. That's something that's important to seeing growth and success. So those tend to be more district-wide or building-wide across all areas. And I think that helps if you have focus groups that have a representation of your entire population, then you're getting an idea of where your culture or your climate really sits. So then, let me go through the plan and then so then we have to actually write a plan for each building as well as for the district. Each plan has 5 goal areas, and the state apparently is sending us our goals. But there will be one goal that's related to ELA, one goal that's related to math, potentially, and I haven't looked at this very closely, but there will probably one goal that will be chronic absenteeism. Even though our absentee rate is not horrible, again, that's usually something that's going to improve your overall, the more students are in school, the better they tend to do. Not always, but most times. And then there's 2 other goals, one of which has to be related to your climate survey results. So some goal that you see in your climate survey, this is an area that's really of concern, we want to focus on that. So that has to be at least one. And then there's a 5th goal that can either be another survey goal, it could be a second ELA or math goal, depending on the fact-finding or the data that we look at in this whole planning process. Eventually, the plans will need to be approved and posted on the approved by the Board of Education and posted on the school website. They are not sent to the State Education Department. My guess is the State Ed will look at the plan on the website, but there's not a ton of oversight that's happening from State Ed as target districts. If we were the next level up, which is CSI, I don't really remember what the C stands for, then the state is much more involved. But at this point, you're a little bit on the honor system, except that they are going to monitor, of course, all the money we're spending.
Listen, we're sending data to them all the time.
We are.
Through the student management system, so they.
Yeah, it's just they're not gonna, I guess
They're right.
the thing that's kind of nice is we don't have to send the whole plan up to State Ed,
For
have them
approval.
approve it, and then send us back one thing that they don't like about it, like sometimes that whole process can take a long time. So this, they need to be achieved, they need to be SMART goals, things that we can measure. So we'll be talking more about what all of that means. and what that will look like, but I just wanted to let you know what the process was like. Ed, do you have a question?
I was just, I see nothing but positive coming from the entire
Yeah,
series.
absolutely.
I'm just curious about the mechanics, given that this assessment in terms of our current status was done through testing. So what kind of a number, because smaller numbers indicate a larger swing in percentages, and we're also talking about individuals participating in the testing. So exactly what kind of a number base were we looking at here to?
So I had Mrs. Brooks run all that information. I was looking at it today. Our total population of Black and African American students is about 8% of our population overall as a district. That equates to less than 70 students in grades 3 through 8.
And do we know how many participated in
Yes,
testing?
I did look at, now I have to think of what I put on the charts. It was different, ELA and math. So ELA, we had, actually I'm not gonna be able to say for sure, but one of them was 67% participation, and one of them was 70% participation. My guess would be ELA was probably more than math, just
Pretty
knowing-
high.
40.
But
Given our
fairly
other
high.
percentages.
Right.
Fairly high. I mean, I didn't break it down by elementary versus middle school.
But with 40
Elementary
students,
school probably has a much higher participation, the middle school, 8th grade is much lower.
So with 40 students, there's probably a legitimate,
That is a
probably
factor,
legitimate
and so that's,
focus,
you know, with what Mr. Bon Jovi is doing and what we're doing to try to encourage more students to take the test, we hope that will only help us. But I do think that it's work as a whole district that needs to be done anyway, not so much focusing on one particular group of students, but really looking at making sure that our students feel that they're represented and included and have equitable access. So, you know, it's all work that I actually had planned on working on and doing, you know, just as.
So we get extra money to do it.
We do get extra money to do it, it's just frustrating to have to do the, you know, the other part of it. But we will be, you know, we'll be sharing more data as we're continuing to go through it and look at it with you in the process. So, no, overall, it will be positive work that comes from it. It's just frustrating to, of course, be honest.
The goals that the state assigns were just for that subset of.
They are going to be looking specifically at that subgroup. Now, the work that we are doing,
Probably benefit all.
it's going to benefit all. So, you know, we're not going, it's not something where we're going to say, you know, we're gonna put aside one whole group of students, whatever that might, you know, whether it was students with disabilities or it was
Yeah.
economically disadvantaged, you know, you're not gonna just say, okay, we're
Hold
only
them
doing
apart,
this
'cause
for
that's
this
the-
group. You know, but, you know, we really been doing a lot of looking and thinking and learning about, you know, why is it that this particular group might not be accessing learning or information in the same way, right? So, and then of course, just trying to look at our other numbers to make sure we're not gonna end up on a list for some other group, so. It's quality, it's all good work. Just, it's better when we can be doing it on our own instead of as a result. So, other than that, I know Mr. Bon Jovi will be talking about the snowball, but I'd like to add my thanks to board members, the school community members, the community at large who donated a tremendous amount of time, money, donations to make it so successful. It was very nice and neat this year, so thank you.
Thank you.
So you just follow up with Mr. Lemick, yes, the snowball. What's great, I've been involved in a lot of fundraisers for various causes. I do have to say, it's a lot of work, but it's fun. It's really fun work, and it's just so rewarding. It really was perhaps, you know, our most successful in many ways. Just the evening itself, the timing of all the events that night. We're in the $12,000 range of how much we raised again in one night from really a small group of people. The amount of work that we can get done for the snowball. It really was just a fantastic community night. Everyone, the three inductees, Mr. Busick, Michael Remus, Lee Scott, it's all now hung up here. We'll continue to put those in this room, and then the plaques are outside the gym. But really everyone had a connection in one way or another to the other inductees. It really was a great night for Highland. And I do thank everyone involved. Tomorrow, I am going to the Department of Health. Ulster County Department of Health is hosting a meeting for all the school districts in the county, just to talk about, I understand there are concerns about the coronavirus and what schools are doing, so we just want to put out the same message. Right now, I would, for once, agree with the governor. The message right now is just remain calm. Remain calm, don't inflate the issue more than it is, but we will get some information, some updated information on this from the Department of Health, and then we will disseminate that to the community. We're not changing any trips, just so, there are some trips coming up. We're not canceling any trips because of coronavirus or anything like that. That question did come up to me. I want to talk about snow day givebacks. I mentioned this at the last meeting a little bit. This is not next year's count, this is this current year. So we have 5 snow days that by contract we will need to give back if we don't use any snow days. Now certainly, in the next couple, I don't see, there's a snowflake next week, but this winter has been, you see a snowflake on your phone the week prior, and then when you get to that week, it's just rain. It's kind of nice now that there is no snow because it's spring sports are starting. But with that, we have 5 days. My suggestion would be the following, that at the next board meeting, the board has to act on this because you're changing the calendar. So at the next board meeting, we would start with one day would be Easter Monday, which is Monday, April 13th. So it would add a day to the spring break. So the Monday, the 13th. A second possible day would be the next day, Tuesday, the 14th.
Holy Tuesday. Sorry, guys.
That's so that's 2 days. You don't really want to, on March 17th, I would say you just do those 2 days. That still leaves 3 days because things can happen. But then the next days would likely be, if we didn't take any more days, it would be the Friday, May 22nd, which is the Friday Memorial Day weekend. It would be the Tuesday, the 26th, the Tuesday after Memorial Day, and then there would still be one more day. But I'm presuming that, with March and even April, with ice, I would say it's probably not going to take a whole lot of snow now to fall, for us to call a snow day.
Just be ready, everyone.
Just so everyone understands
Sun and
that.
rain cloud. Highland Central schools are closed.
But it does limit us. Because of 3 through 8 testing, which starts in late March and then into April, it does limit really what the weekend you can't just haphazardly just throw them in days. Because you have the assessments, you have makeup dates for those assessments, AP exams, correct. Okay? So we'll start with the 2. The Monday, April 13th, Tuesday, April 14th, we'll put that on the next agenda. I do understand that families have been asking about this a little bit, so now they can perhaps start to make some plans. I don't foresee any big snowstorms before that time. Then we have, the community did get, and I appreciate the feedback from the board, they got the first of 3 mailings, the back to the test. Time to get back to the test. And this is our campaign for getting people back to the test. So last night on the Monday message, I gave the heads up that for the next several Tuesdays, we would have back to the test Tuesday messages also. So my message tonight was, I didn't get into the specific information yet. I reiterated to read the mailing, expect the mailings, and I gave my phone number and my email out to please contact me. If you want to talk about these tests, let's talk about it. But again, this one is then and now. So again, now, they have reduced the time of the test. It's not 3 days, it's now 2 days. It was timed, the test is now not timed. The questions were from an outside company, now they're selected from New York State educators. The results came out very late. Now most of the results come out so that in time that we can use them to plan curriculum. And it is no longer linked to teacher and principal evaluations. So the next two, which I think I've already shared with the board, will continue with further information, the pros and cons of taking the test. One of the, and I'll be saying this in my phone message, I don't want to give away my secrets, but really, we, last week, we had some busy things that came up as they can in a school district. We had a power outage. We didn't have Mr. Dudley Lemick, we didn't have Mr. Boyd, we didn't have Mr. Freer in district because of, really, in a sense, in part due to the low participation on 3 through 8 testing, it makes districts do other things and takes you away from the core thing that you should be doing, which is working with your students. It distracts you. So that is really a major disadvantage of not taking these tests. So I will review these in some content next week, and again, continue for people. I don't know if I'll get people out to a night meeting to talk about 3 through 8 testing, but I do know that at least many people do, they've come used to listening to the Monday message, so hopefully for the next couple of Tuesdays, they'll tolerate a second message from me. We're gonna go back to the test, and with a little hopefully they understand that what we're referring to, like Back to the Future,
When you
Back to
get your
the
DeLorean, you go around town.
Yes. Tomorrow night,
Is that a
and I
capital
do want to
purchase?
celebrate, it is tomorrow night is the district choral concert, but I'll be going to Chief Wage's retirement party. I did want to, I felt it was important that someone there representing the district to honor Chief Wage for everything he's done. And we did, I honored him, we gave him a quick shout out at the Snowball, which I'm sure he was very glad that I did that. But he was there and I recognized him at the Snowball, so it was nice. He was there with his wife. So that's all for now.
Good. His retirement party's lasted months, hasn't it? We wish him the best.
Yes.
Any questions? Okay. Board of Education, new business. The proposed 2020-2021 school calendar year. Be resolved, the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, approve the attached school calendar for the 2020-2021 school year as presented to the board at this meeting. Have a motion, please, Ed, Heather?
So in this, again, this is superintendent's review, all superintendent's review together with Dr. Corey. Most of us, after some discussion, even BOCES changed their calendar a little bit to mirror this a little bit. So most districts are going to be right around these same days. And the same is true in Orange County and all of our surrounding counties. They kind of try to get together and keep them pretty close to each other. This does have, I work with Mrs. Jacobson, who is a guru on the calendar, so I hope I can answer any specific questions, but, when it lists about the student days, teacher days, remember there are 5 superintendent conference days, there are 7 snow days, so where it says teacher, my explanation for perhaps a question, there's, the students are here 184 days, but where it says 191, you really subtract the 7 from that. I believe that's how that gets to the 184. I don't know if that was your question though.
Well,
We have more
No,
contractual days.
that doesn't have anything to do with 7 snow days,
No,
does it?
No.
We
Because
have-
you
we
wouldn't
have
have to
more-
give them back
we have
if
more,
that was the case.
right, we have more contractual days with our teaching staff
Right.
than student days.
Right.
So those, that 191 is contractual HTA days.
Right, and why so many more? Like, I think that that's a lot when we look at other school calendars.
Right.
Anyway,
I mean, that's
It's just-
contractual, so.
Yeah,
Those are superintendent's conference days. and-
yeah,
we have
I understand that.
Yeah.
sure.
I,
Mhm.
Staff
so
development.
pure in contract, not that we require that.
Contract.
I believe they ticked up once upon a time for APPR when that adjusted, but,
Yeah, I don't know the history.
Yeah,
okay.
It's been 191 for how long? Since you remember it.
Since I remember, but I don't know.
since
that I was paying
since
close
I've been
attention,
here,
so.
it's been that.
That's why, Joey. All right,
Staff is in also on 9-2, 9-3, or just teachers? That is
That's
staff?
staff, that's everyone.
That's
Everyone.
So
Everyone
they're off
9-2.
Friday and Monday.
Yeah, the only
And students
so-
are back on Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Tuesday, correct.
Yep.
Yeah, and so there's just a 2-day difference between 10-month HSA and then the 10-month HTA, and those are the 2 days. So we don't have HSA in on November 25th, and we don't have HSA in on March 5th. And those are parent-teacher conference days.
okay, I was just asking
Oh,
if there
sure.
was a
I
reason
understand.
why there was such a differential. because
There's-
The only reason, yeah.
That's been there for quite a while.
They usually have like 2, even when they first come into school, it's like 2 days back before the school year begins.
Right, that's the
Usually
second and the
like
third.
two, yeah.
I'm just thinking, when you
That's then-
settle contracts, doesn't matter what the unit is, you're really appropriating either, there's 2 resources we appropriate, either money or time, and it goes back and forth. So
Right.
it was just something I was taking a look at as to why there was so many more days.
Okay. I
So
understand.
something I'm just taking a look at, and we'll look at some regional data.
Well, one thing is the law allows for 4 superintendent conference days, but by contract, you have 5 superintendent conference days. Most districts in Ulster County have their 190 days as a contractual obligation.
Most in Ulster?
Yep.
Thank you.
Are we still doing evening parent-teacher conference? So on
Yes.
November
Yes.
25th, in past years, wasn't that a complete day off and not a half?
In the last year or two it was, but just the way the calendar works out, it doesn't work out this year.
AM on
Yeah,
the day
it
before.
has to be a half day, yep.
Part of that this year, I think, is because Labor Day is so late.
Right.
We kind of lose a little
Yeah.
wiggle room.
Right.
And this year we had the leap year, so that added some time, you know, so.
I remember part of last year, we had some calendars where we only had 5 or 6 snow days
Right.
built into it.
Right, we have more days built
Yeah.
in.
Right.
Well, because then we had, what was it, a couple of years ago, that we had to give back a spring break day.
I'm just,
You don't really.
I'm not here.
So we've gone over it many
That's where
times,
it is. All right.
the numbers all pan out correctly. That's my only.
Been reviewed by both units.
Yes.
All right, we have a
All right.
motion, any discussion, or further discussion? All those in favor of our
Aye.
calendar for 2021? Opposed? So carried. FYI, Ulster County School Boards Association meeting March 2nd, March 12th, 2020.
RSVP,
RSVP.
Sue, thank you.
Our Highland Central School District Board of Education policy, first reading, policy number 5550, maintenance of fiscal effort, policy 5551, allocation Title I, Part A funds in the district, policy 5560, use of federal funds for political expenditures, and policy 6430, employee political activities. We'll make this the first reading and we'll hold it for a vote for our second reading. Thanks for that time to
Good work there, Mike.
go through that.
The group,
Yeah, it's a
moving
great group
phenomenal, we'll
effort
speak to
and-
that in a
yeah.
minute, but I do.
All right, under old business, Highlands Central School District Board of Education policy, second reading. Be it resolved, the Board of Education, upon recommendation of the superintendent, approves the following Highland Central School District Board of Education policies: 5320 expenditures of school district funds, 5571 allegations of fraud, 5620 fixed asset inventories, accounting and tracking, 5630 meal charging of prohibition against meal sharing, 5640 smoking and tobacco use, 5700, I believe the R is revised.
The regulation.
Regulation, travel, conference attendance and expense reimbursement. 5741, drug and alcohol testing for school bus drivers and other safety sensitive employees. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Camille, second by Mike. Discussion.
Just to let you know, so between the policies at the first reading and then this second reading here, that's really gonna take care of the policy 5000 section, so we're real happy about that. Some of these, well, in this second reading, you've seen them, but everything here has gone through review by the committee, review by legal, probably weighed against Erie one, and we've hit some rhythm, I think.
Yes, we have.
Well, you said those were reviewed by legal, will that be notated on it once you
Yes.
approve them? Okay.
Is it not notated now?
No, it's notated that they're reviewed
Well,
by the
well,
committee, but
not-
not by legal.
Not all of
Right,
them.
Not
not
all have
all
to
of
be
them go to
reviewed by-
legal review per
Yeah.
se.
Okay.
And if that's not the case, then we've probably taken a look at an Erie one, or it meets current expectations.
That came up in one conversation, didn't it? We were talking about having the ones that, because we changed legal and having it indicated as to which legal team actually reviewed it and approved it. Because we,
It should say that.
yeah, that
All
came
they
in.
should
Yeah.
have that on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that came up because the new firm wasn't on one of those, even though they had reviewed it,
Right.
so it was just getting it on there. And you're actually seeing, right, there's a new format there, the blue format. I've been kind of a stickler here.
It's been, that format's
I
nice.
know, I'm not popular with some folks, but if we say it's been new and updated, I felt like it should have a new look and easily discernible.
Yes,
That's great.
Details.
yeah.
So legal does a review prior or after?
If they need to, if it's a new policy or
Yeah.
they changes, yeah.
Changes every
Some of them don't really have any changes, just very slight updates.
Or if there's something in Erie one, but not, like, just to make, so we wanna make sure, or if there's something that, like, I know in the last one, I think that'll be in the next meeting, I thought I had heard about some change in regulation, that I just wanted legal to go through it and make sure that we have everything.
Absolutely, that's why we do it.
Yep.
And-
No, I'll be perfectly honest, I sat through a committee, policy review committee years ago when I was on the board earlier on. And we would sit there hours and bring it back to the board, and this conversation would go on for a whole hour. And it would change the whole policy, and it would have to go back to legal.
So that's why
That's
you have
not
a
enough.
committee.
I had we had a committee, but I had my doubts, but I'm very happy to hear that.
Yes.
You guys are moving through the policies, reviewing them, and legal's on top of the game, and
Mhm.
the board is appreciative of all that work.
Thank you for the opportunity.
It's working out well.
I just want to note that there are like 2 or 3 5,000 policies that will be going to the audit committee for consideration first. And then if they say yes or nay, we'll bring it to the board, the policy committee.
So there's a lot of dynamics here, it's not just the group run amok and ripping through it. It's, there's some real
And we have a
work
great
behind
time
it.
at those meetings.
Okay. Any
All-
further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Anything for the good and welfare? Thank you.
Yep, a lot of those are.
Anything for the good and welfare of the district?
Yeah.
Yes.
Frank, what was that disturbance before in the hallway? Were they supervised students or unsupervised?
No, there was a wrestling dinner down
Dinner, they're
there.
having
The
the
doors
dinner.
were open, so I just had the doors
Right,
shut.
yeah.
It's the big dinner night.
Their banquet, wrestling banquet this evening, another excellent season.
Comes with screaming.
Frivolities.
And wrestling.
Joyous
In between dinner and dessert, there's wrestling, I'm sure.
It's like, did you subdue them?
Anything else for the good and welfare of the district? We'll open the meeting back up to public comment.
Frank?
Okay, no public comment.
Great.
Thanks for staying.
Yes,
Aw.
Hopefully the next one you have to sit through a beer.
We don't have to go back into executive session, so
Yeah.
I'll ask for a
Okay.
motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion by Tom,
Okay.
second by Heather. All in favor?
Bye.